Hi, good afternoon, Aditya. How are you doing?
I am absolutely fine. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So, Aditya, I see that you have more than 10 years of experience, specifically the education space. And what I saw was your sort of expertise. You're working with AACSB on some initiatives, and now you're the director at Athena. So, could you sort of tell me how your journey into education came about being?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question, and I think that throws us back to, as they say in the old Star Wars movies, a long, long time back in a galaxy far, far away. So, like most of us, I started we did the same with it. A lot of us too went in, did my first MBA from a business school called SPJIMR or SPJM right here in Bombay after getting the CAT, and then moved straight into consulting line in the corporate sector, and it was going great. But then, somewhere in 2011 or so, one saw a very, very interesting change. So till about 2008, when you did an MBA, the chances of you landing a great job were very high. I mean, out of every five, four would get selected because that was the quality and the rigor of studies. By 2011, I was doing something in talent consulting and deep strategic talent consulting, and we were doing research. We realized that out of every 100 MBA students giving their interviews, for campuses and fresher employments, 90 to 95 are getting rejected in the first interviews. And that was a very scary statistic, especially when you compare to what was happening just 4 years back. And we realized this was happening because suddenly these students are coming out with a very maybe high theoretical base. As a master's level student would come on an MCOM or an MSc. But when they came, they were not coming with the proper skills, the quality that a corporate aspires or wants in a fresher. And I think that got one thinking on what one could do about it. So there were two things. We either talk about it or do something about it. I decided to be someone who could do something about it. In hindsight, greatest decision, but at that time I didn't think that was a great decision, but that's what I did. And I went about creating, a business school, founding a business school. And it's been a phenomenal journey because being a young, independent business school, we're very clear that we were not going to be beholden to anyone. We wanted to follow our own path, which we believed, and it's been coming on a backward integration. So what the corporate sector desired is what we're creating over here.
That is very interesting. So you speak about founding of a business school. So at which point did you get involved, and how did you decide that this was the school you wanted to be involved in? The vision for it.
So I'm going to share something which is breaking news and which I don't normally. I'm actually part of the founding team at Athena. So a lot of us, some of us got together from a consulting corporate background. We said, let's do something, let's create magic, as they say. And just as it happened with ISB, there has to be one Murga who has to really be the face and do all the work. So among us, that Murga was chosen to be me. So I must share with you all, when Athena started and I was part of the founding team, I was all of 29 years old, all right, or young. And that was a very, very interesting zone and a place to be when we started Athena. It's been now more than 11 years. That gives people some idea about my age. But more than that, it's been a wonderful journey. And I think, personally speaking, I think I've grown with Athena. The Aditya Singh who was there maybe 11, 12 years back when Athena started, and me now is someone who's learned along with their journey. And I'm so thankful for that on a personal level.
And so, usually founding members have a lot of war stories that they have to share, because getting an educational institution off the ground in India is something you don't wish on your worst enemies. And so how did, so I'd love to hear some of these stories as to what were some of the challenges and, how you overcame them.
I think one of the biggest challenges we started off was, I think, and I really get it, I think in education, it's vintage is respected. The older you are, you're assumed to be better. That's why you're around for some time. Of course, in India, wisdom is also associated with age. So let's go back to 2012, 2013. You have a 29-year-old fronting the institution as a director who obviously doesn't have age on his side in a brand new institution. I think the biggest challenge for us in the first 2 or 3 years was trust. Building the trust, because yes, a lot of people can come and talk smoothly about we want to do this, we want to do that. But I think, and I get it, parents are worried, students are worried that would the institution be around? They want to do great things. That's wonderful. Would they be around? Would they be able to do that? Or is it someone that would join and after a couple of years, they would just fly off? Well, I can clearly tell you that we are here. A lot of schools have not survived. We both know that. We've grown, we've flowered, we've grown up. And for that, I give 100% credit to our first few batches. They believed in us when no one else did. It was a leap of faith for them. But if I may say so, this with a lot of modesty and humility, I think we justified their faith, and and that's how we've been building up on strength year on year on year. I think the second challenge, of course, was what is the sheer resources. You have huge amount of resources which come into education institutions. Of it, it's very good. We're seeing a lot of corporate houses coming into the institutions. So how is it that you, as an independent institution, are able to hold your own ground? And at that, we were very clear. We were not going to play the game on other people's rules and strengths. It's as simple as that. Because if we did that, we would lose that game. So very clear, Athena is going to follow its own path. It's great what the rest of the world is doing. Full kudos to them. I mean, great for them. But we're going to have our own story to tell. We're going to have our own successes, maybe minor failures along the way also, but our own journey, for better for worse. And I think that's been phenomenal. What we do is different. What we do is unique. And what we do is so Athena that it's in many ways not imitable by anyone else.
So when you speak about what according to you makes you unique and you feel like, is the strength you've built over the last decade?
I think there are 3 or 4 parts. Some of them were there, from day one. Some of them have evolved. The first is believe that when you learn business, it can't be from a textbook only. I mean, theory doesn't go anywhere. Or when you know it, you've been through it, I've been through it, right? But we are old war horses now. We've gone through so many. So how do you give that knowledge or that experience to a young fresher or a young with 2 or 3 years of experience? So Athena believes in multiple internships. Now we all know most business schools do a single summers, which is there. At Athena, we do an internship in every single semester. So every semester, 3 to 4 months, you're studying in class on the best possible faculty. And then for 2 months to 2.5 months, you're interning with the top corporate. You do this every semester. By the time you finish your 2-year program, you already have, 6 to 7 months of real world exposure across different companies, different verticals, different industries. So what kind of exposure you get? That's number one. Of course, if you're good, that helps you get a PPI or a PPO. We have students who, by the time they finish the program, already have 2 or 3 PPOs in hand, and then they choose which one they want, which is wonderful there. The second part, of course, is our belief that in today's world, as Shakespeare once said, in all the world's a stage, right? So we become a very globalized world. To just tell a student what's happening in Bombay or what's happening in India doesn't suffice. So international exposure is critical for us. What does that mean? All our students in their first year have an option to go for a 2-month-long international internships. Our students have gone to places as diverse to intern with companies in the Netherlands, in Turkey, in Portugal, in France, in Germany, in Cairo. So imagine the kind of exposure you get. Similarly, in the second year, our students can go for international exchanges and international immersions to our partner universities across the world. And these are all grade A universities. So you have Mughal University in Canada, which is one of the top universities in the world. You have NTU or Nanyang University in Singapore, for example, where you go for a few weeks to a few months, depending on the program you choose, stay over there, study with their students, and come back to India. Our faculty who teaches by default, of course, our base is taught by doctorates. Obviously, it has to be there. But a lot of our specialist modules are taught by faculty who are the who's of corporate India, because they are the people who have had 20 years, 30 years of real world experience. That's a big differentiator. And finally, of course, it is, there's this saying in Hindi, if I may use the term, jo dikhta hai, wahi bikta hai. Or as it's in English, all that glitters is gold. In today's, world, impressions, perceptions are very important. So we work on the soft skills, the communication skills, the presentation skills, the grooming, corporate activities. Imagine as an Athena student, you're meeting the chairman of IRDA, Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India, entrepreneurs such as Vinita Singh, for example. You have Devita Sarah from View.com. You go for adventure sports, museum tours, rock climbing, rappelling. The idea is very clear. At the end of 2 years, when you walk into a boardroom for a meeting, you should be so confident. You should be so impressive. People on the other side of the table should be desperate to listen to what you have to say.
That is interesting. I mean, there's a fair amount of breadth that you have covered. And, I think it's always challenging to have this discussion around both breadth and depth in a business school. On one hand, you have the schools which talk about having a lot of depth in an area and the breadth is sort of limited. So what are your views on managing both the breadth and the depth of what you're teaching to your students?
So we address the depth very simply by limiting intake. I think, and it pains me, and I'm being very honest, and this is a heart to heart, when you have institutions take not even hundreds, but now thousands of students every single intake. come on. I mean, it's a challenge. I mean, studies have shown the optimum number of students which can be in a classroom which can be taught is 30. 25 to 30 is where one single faculty can focus. Then we see all the top international IB schools, IBC schools have about 30 in the class. We follow the same philosophy. We don't take more than 25 to 30 students in a single classroom. So the journey for every student at Athena is very personalized, it's very customized. We really believe in that adage, no two snowflakes are alike. Similarly, no two students are alike. Everyone has their own strengths, their own weaknesses. We want to help them improve their strengths, reduce their weaknesses. And for us, if you ask me all, which I think is very contrarian in today's India, is we believe in the power of individuality. We believe every student is someone who's a strong individual. So we don't want them to become a conformist. In fact, Athena students are very high non-conformists. We want them to be unique, to be special, so they can create their own path wherever that may be, that in business, be that in the corporate sector. That is our deep focus, number one. Number two is we believe that a lot of depth comes from interaction, from exposure. It does not come just from classroom. So we are one of the world leaders in something called COIL, which is Collaborative Online International Learning. Athena students do multiple coils in the space over here where they do joint projects as project teams with partner students from top business schools across the world. So be it FHNW in Switzerland, for example, Liverpool in UK, FDC of Fundakadam Cabral, of course, in Brazil for that matter, the Athens University in Greece, the list goes on, where they come together and work on special projects on sustainability, on digital transformation, on corporate finance. And imagine the kind of exposure you get. They say that it's not about only what you know, but who you know in today's world. And this actually lets them know a lot of people across the length and breadth. We also host students and student delegations come from across the world. So for example, every April we host about 30 students who visit us from Switzerland to study about India and study business about India. What we call frugal innovation, what we call jugaad. That's all what we. So there's a lot of depth in what we do at the same time, and that is accentuated by the fact we take less students. So very focused on that.
Okay, fantastic. I see that currently there is a lot of debate around innovation and technology in the business school space. Most of them are trying to figure out how to deal with areas like AI, ML. What is your perspective on integration of technology and innovation in today's business school curriculum and space?
That always a fantastic question because, just to share with you, I also happen to teach in business schools across the world. So I do sessions, for example, at FDC in Brazil, HEC Paris is someone where I do sessions with their digital MBA track. And the track which I teach and specialize is digital transformation with them. And I always tell people the digital revolution, the AIs, the ML, the blockchain, the Bitcoins, what have you, these are not innovators, these are not constraints, these are not replacements, these are all tools, these are all your allies in advancing digital cognition. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The students we have now are Gen Z or Gen Z, how you pronounce it, right? Post that is there. This is the last generation for whom digital skills is not cognitive, right? We are after them, the next in 10 years we'll have Gen Alpha, which will come in. Now for them, that's cognitive. So for the digital Gen Z, it's very important to use these tools to better themselves. I hear a lot of doomsday scenarios, or you get AI into education, what's going to happen. You and I both know in the 1960s, when they first got calculators into the classroom, the kind of hoo-ha and protest, they were like, students not stop thinking. It's not that. It's actually helped them move to a higher level of thinking. And I think that's important. We have to understand we're not training, mere managers. We're training leaders. And leaders need to be able to use tools to further their thinking and thinking differently. That's, I think, what our take on. So we love this new digital tools coming into play. I mean, look at the fact that what you and I are doing right now, right? We're sitting miles apart. We're doing this completely real-time online. This would have not been very, very possible even a decade ago. Today, everyone does it. So that's the pace of so I don't call it evolution. I don't call it revolution. I call it a re-evolution for all of us to be able to harness to move to the next level.
Okay. So do you have specific plans that you are saying that, this is the direction that the world is taking, and I need to now make sure that my institution is best set to take advantages of these so-called tools, if you will?
Now, there is always, one has to be always careful, because the age of trying to predict what is going to happen 4 or 5 years down the future is, I think, gone now. It's just too dynamic. We can never do that. You can just hope to be prepared. So the way we look at it, we're using these tools to make sure that our students don't have to keep catching up to the change. There are people who can create the change. That's very important for us. At the same time, we have to be very careful. We're not trying to make them technical specialists. So I don't need my students to know the inside of how ARC works, for example, right? Or how the inside of it. They have to know how to use these tools. But I think we have to take a step back to understand what is it that you're training your students to become. It's very important. So again, it goes back to one of the DNA philosophies at Athena DNA. We decided we will not train our students to become managers because that requires a very interesting and very important temperament. We will train our students to become leaders, which requires sometimes a very different temperament, a different perspective, look at things contrarily. And that's why we're using these tools for them to understand that. What we're trying to do is we're understanding that we are becoming perhaps one node of a networked hive of institutions, research bodies, industry practitioners. And if we can tap into that hive to increase awareness, exposure, and knowledge for our students on a real-time basis, that's what we gave them an advantage in, and that's what we're trying to do over the next few months and years.
I think that's a very interesting response. I mean, it's always been challenging, I think, for business schools to figure out what are they putting out. At the end of the day, schools which have an intake of 500 or 600 students, are they putting out leaders? Are they putting out managers? And so I really love that you have taken an approach of saying that, our school's job is to sort of create leaders. And, when I hear that, I want to ask you, how do recruiters respond to that? And how do they engage with you? And what is it that they are looking for?
So, we realize that if you try to do a plain Jane final day 0, day 1 campus recruitment, it's not going to work with a school like ours. Right? We're very clear on that. So we have a very deep long-term engagement with institutions. It starts from day 1 itself. So like I said, of course, number 1 is our students go to come into multiple internships. That's 1. Number 2, companies share real life projects with our students. Number 2. Number 3, we try to make sure we get as many senior executives from the corporate sector to come and interact with our students. We do that almost on a weekly basis. Very important. Different perspectives, different contexts, very important for us. That's one part of what we do. The second part is, since we take a limited intake, we engage with the companies. We actually, I think from a consulting background, we do it. We consult with companies and understand what is it they're looking out for. And does an Athena student able to put value? So to give you context, in a lot of institutions, when you have companies coming for campus placements, etc., you have about 50, 60, 100 students sitting for interviews. At Athena, you have about 4 to 5 students to sit for a position. That's it. Because we make sure that there's already a DNA fitment more than anything else. There's an attitudinal alignment with what the company wants and what a student can do. And if you see there's no alignment, no matter how good the student is or how much he wants, we say, no, that's not the right fit for you. And that's, I think, something which helps us move a long way. I must confess, every year we have students who come to us and say, and I've had just, yesterday I had a conversation with the student who said, sir, I'm not going to sit for placements. And I'm like, why? Did you get something on your own? Good for you. He said, no, I'm going to be starting my own company. And when I hear that, a very big part of me just wants to go and hug that student and say, you are a manifestation of what we're trying to really do over here. Will do all of them succeed? Of course not. It's statistically impossible. But do all of them learn from that experience? Absolutely yes. And I think that's just a fantastic learning pitch for them to move forward.
It's very interesting. I'll just give a small anecdote. I remember I was lecturing at Ahmedabad, and I remember asking, this is the first year, and I was asking them, how many of you want to be an entrepreneur? And very fascinating. I think maybe 80% of the class, raised their hand. And I asked them from the last batch, how many of them became an entrepreneur? And the answer was like maybe 3 guys. And what I've realized, and I think the number has always remained the same, people do get into a business school to sort of become an entrepreneur, but then I think by the time they graduate, they realize that maybe it's not as straightforward as they initially thought it was. And maybe the fact that the fees itself becomes a constraint for them in sort of considering. So I'm happy to hear from you that you still have students who are sort of willing to make that leap. I think that's fantastic.
Thanks, Alvin. And one of the things that we try to do consciously, and that's very difficult in an Indian context, is increase the risk-taking appetite for our students.
Yeah.
Must be. It is works contrary to about 20, 21 years of conditioning of our Indian students' mind. It is like, don't take a risk, go for the safe bet. And here we tell them in those, short tours there with us, take a chance on yourself. You're young. If things don't work out, you have your entire life to do. Don't worry. But take a chance, because if you don't aim to leap high, if you don't aim to touch the peak of success, you will always end up right at the base of success.
Fantastic. So tell me one thing, every school has certain hidden gems. So I'm curious, what are a couple of these secret unfair advantages that you believe that Athena has that most students are unaware of?
That personal touch. You ask any Athena alumni, they tell you it's like a family. I think we're very lucky in that. I mean, the things we share with each other, the way we take care of each other, the accessibility of faculty and managers, which is critical. All right, the ability to just lean on one sometimes shoulder and just let it out. We do all of that very, very well because we believe in it. And I think that's what I mean. Everyone is just one phone call away anytime, or now in today's world, one WhatsApp message away any time of the day for help, support, guidance. Because I think that's what students need. It's not that theoretical base. They need that mentorship. They need that support. They need that belief that yes, someone is there standing next to me as I take this journey ahead. I think that's what we do exceptionally well. Second is, of course, one of the hidden things about this is our location. Now, we took a very clear call. You could take a huge campus on the, out 2 hours outside Bombay, halfway to maybe Pune, Karjat, but that's not Bombay for you, right? I mean, what's the point of being in Bombay? So we said we're going to be in the heart of corporate Bombay. So we're in Hiranandani, Powai. We are structured like a corporate campus. So when my student opens one window, he sees the headquarters of Colgate-Palmolive next to him. The other side is the headquarters of Schindler next to him. When he goes down to the corporate cafeteria, he's talking to people from Colgate-Palmolive, Hershey's, US. So that corporate buzz, not something which you just hear about as this alien context. You're living it, you're breathing it every single moment. And that's something which helps our students a lot. So tomorrow when they go into a company for an interview or an internship, when they're interviewed by a VP or a EVP or whoever, it's not a big deal for them. They don't get overawed. They've done it. They've lived it for 2 years. And I think that's a very, very big advantage our students have over a lot of other people. And I think that's important for us.
Okay. So I see that, you have these affiliations as an individual. You have these affiliations with prestigious institutions like the Royal School of Arts, the Asiatic Society, and Chatham House. I was very interested with the whole Chatham House. I remember the whole Chatham House rules, I think, came from them, right? And so
absolutely,
I was curious about how, your purview seems to be fairly global in nature. You're teaching at international institutions. So how do these affiliations influence your approach to education and the perspective that you bring to your students at the Athena School of Management?
I think that's a wonderful question, Alvin. And I go back to when we founded ourselves. We were very clear we're going to be Athena was always and is always going to be a global business school based out of Mumbai. We're very clear of that. And that's how we always see ourselves and we always perceive ourselves. As part of that, it's very important for our students to understand global headwinds, what's happening across the world, international context. This way, this entire global connection comes into play. What we also call the butterfly effect, right? For example, where it is that so a small change, for example, in the London Stock Exchange or in the London Commodities Exchange, how does it affect perhaps prices when it comes to mining raw materials and affects a very, very major mining conglomerate in India? That's what true business is all about. Remember, again, as I said, going back, we're training our students to be leaders, training them to be able to catch trends, identify them before anyone else does. That's something very important for us. The second part of this is to understand that the true wonder of multiculturalism and how people are different. Now, I've been very lucky, and you see, I've studied across the world. I still do a lot of my work across the world, and it's wonderful because it makes me understand different perspectives. And it gives us solutions to problems which we never thought existed. That's what we want our students to have. So it's quite possible, for example, that an Athena student, for example, could be lectured by a faculty from Wharton in the morning. All right. In the afternoon, they could be doing a joint project with a student, 2 or 3 participants from Switzerland. And in the evening, they'd be doing a joint class on digital transformation with a class of students from Brazil. Now, when you have that kind of a bandwidth and vision, that's how you start thinking. You look from a top-down approach, right? That's very important. And then you have a very different elevated view of the possibilities of the world. And that is something which you really want to put into them typically. Again, as I said, if we're not student who wants to start off as a manager, to be very honest, again, it comes down to that. As you can see, it's again created to understand from a geopolitical perspective. How is the current issue in the Middle East affecting possible business opportunities? All right. How has Brexit changed the entire gamut of how you do business in Europe? How now, rather than going to London, you need to go to Frankfurt or Zurich to actually be able to make a change. That is global context, that's global knowledge. That's what I'm trying to bring to our students.
Okay. So I see that, you have a very strong interest in ESG. And I think companies, and I think there's a lot of investor interest as well in well-run companies. So I'm very curious, you're the chair of the ESG Center of Excellence. How are you considering and envisioning the integration of sustainability and responsible business practice into the curriculum at the Athena School of Management?
So for us, ESG is a critical part of the entire teaching. So we don't teach ESG as a different subject, which a lot of schools do. It's encrypted and imbibed in every single subject and every single course that we do. That's important because I think it's time for us to understand it's not an external third-party thing. It's an absolute critical business imperative. That's something we're very passionate about. We're very much into the SDGs. As you can see, I'm wearing the SDG badge right now. So, that's something very, very, passionate about as it is. Right? And also, of course, the fact in the end is that we want to make sure that people understand that, you can have a plan A and a plan B, but you cannot have a planet B. There's just one planet. So from that perspective, for us, ESG is critical. Every single child is given the value of that from a business imperative and to make them understand. The second thing is from a perspective, again, you have scope 2 and scope 3 coming into industry, which means that our students have to be equipped on that tomorrow if they want to actually make global companies. That's something which we're actually focusing a lot on at the same time. And again, we get a lot of access to industry research and trends on a global level. The ESG Center is based out of Switzerland. It's not based in India. So that actually gives us a lot of exposure on what's happening in the world.
Okay, got that. So I have a question around your vision and ambition for the Athena School of Management. And my question is very simple. How can you please, paint a picture of how you're envisioning the Athena story over the next decade?
So let me, you want to understand how in the next decade, yes. Right? So few things. I think Athena's, again, goes back to our DNA process. We believe we are a global school. So we see ourselves as key players globally in the next decade. That's very important for us. Not by way of, how should I put it, by way of size or scale, but by way of impact. And I think that's very important for one to be very sure about. So we are already moving into that frame. For example, we've launched a few global programs. That's number one, which we offer. So we have a very interesting master's in global luxury and brand management, where students study for the first year in Bombay, year 2 in Paris, and then they get work for a couple of years in Paris with the top global luxury brands. We're launching some programs like that, number one. Do we see having a global presence by way of physical campuses across the world in the next 10 years? Yes, we do. We do. Will they be standalone campuses? That's up for debate. Or will they be points where students travel from India for exposure? Probably yes. But do we see them also becoming, standalone campuses, with their own ecosystems and their own contribution to the entire environment? Yes, we do. So that's where we are going to be going. I think the first 11 years, and I'm not an engineer, but I still know that as a civil engineer, as they say, you have to build the foundation. So we spend the first decade building a deep, strong structural foundation. This decade is about building that skyscraper fast and building it high.
Wow. So are you looking at attracting international students into India, since you're looking at this from a very global perspective?
So we've been very lucky. We have always attracted, even very early in the stage, always we've attracted international students. Now, do I mean students from Europe? No, but we've had students from Nepal, from the Middle East, from Madagascar, from all these places coming and studying at Athena. We're very lucky that way. And of course, now we have more students coming for short-term programs. So as the years go by, we'll see that happening. I think India today is maybe where China was in 1994, 95. where, students from the West started thinking, hell, this is going to be the next big superpower when it comes to economy. I want to go and get exposure to their business. And today, when you have things like CIBS, HK, USC, you have a lot of international students. I think we now are going to be moving into that stage. The problem is, are Indian schools themselves looking at that? That's the problem. A lot of Indian schools, unfortunately, are very, very insular. They're very inward looking. They don't look out to the world. So if you don't give out a welcoming hand, why would people come to you? That's similar. And that's what we are doing. We're giving a welcoming embrace. We want you to come and exchange your views, your knowledge with us, and what we can contribute with that.
So
as an equal, very important.
I hear you. And then, so, if you had to make some suggestions to the Indian business schools, what would you tell them? That what is it that they need to do so that India becomes a far more recognized space as a destination for an MBA degree?
First and foremost, get rid of what I call an inferiority complex, which a lot of us in India have. All right, our time is now. I mean, we've had to wait for close to 1,000 years, I would say, but it's India's time for the next, at least for the next 30 to 40 years. We Indians may not win too many golds in the Olympics, but we really won the gold when it came to making babies, and that's coming to good. So we have this population advantage, and the economy is growing. We are the most populous country in the world. Great policies in place. So you're seeing industry rising. It's our next few decades. So go out to the world as equals. Don't go out with a begging bowl. Don't go out with a request for help. I see that happening. Number two, when you go that, treat it as a business negotiation, as an equal. And it's all about quid pro quo. What do you get for us? What do we get for you? Too many times, and I think that's probably because we come from a very emotional culture. We come from a very personal culture. We think of relationships in the international world as favors. There are no favors. As Henry Kissinger once said, there are no friends in the world. They're just permanent interests, right? So these are just for interests. So if we can leverage that, I think we really can actually become a place for the world to come. As of now, I see policy more towards getting international universities to come into India. Where I would love to see that policy move is towards attracting international students to come to India.
Okay, fantastic. So while a student is considering an MBA, what do you think are the top few factors that a student needs to keep in their mind?
Definitely not the package. I think that's what I always tell people. All right, money and the money you earn is a function of everything else. It's just an end product, right? What is very important for you to understand from an MBA is, first and foremost, every business school is nice. Be it anyone who takes 1,000 or someone who takes 30 or 60. I really believe that. I think there's a good school for every person. There's a good student for every school. That's one very clear part. So understand what's your fitment. What do you aim to get out of this? Do you just want a degree? Great, good. You want a great time? Great. You want a great corporate career? You want to be a business leader? You want to be a leader? The different aspects you want. Then understand what is important for you. Is a brand is all that counts for you? For you, great. Or is it that experience, that exposure, that learning? Are you going to look towards your life only working in India, or are you looking at a global canvas to build yourself in? Right? And finally, then I think that's very critical. Find out how much care that institution takes on you as a student. Do they really care for you? I think that's important. We always end up forgetting that important part. Does that institution take care of you when you're over there? Because if that is there, a lot of other things just work out. And I'll always tell students, don't think about the first job you're going to get once you pass out. That's the silliest thing to do. All right? It's a career. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Think about where you want to be 10 years after you finish your MBA. And what does this do to prepare you on that journey? And be rest assured, there will be highs and there will be lows. My job as an institution is not only to make the student feel great when they're going up. I have to make sure the institution that as a professional, they never look back. And when the going gets tough, they get going. That's very important.
Well said. So I had this question around the sustainable business leaders, because I think there is a massive demand for sustainable business leaders. And my question to you is, there would be students who are looking at pursuing an MBA, but beyond the degree, how should they prepare themselves to be such sustainable business leaders of the future?
First and foremost, they need to have a high sense of self-belief. You can't be a conformist if you want to do that. belief in your own beliefs. Easier said than done, I know that, but that's important. Number two, think about which area can you make an impact in. I mean, there are always a few, there are always a few Einsteins and Leonardo da Vinci's, but they are rare, right? Not everyone can be a polymath. So it's very important for them to understand which is the area they want to build an impact in, how far they want to go in that journey. Very important again. And what are they ready to put on the line for that journey? No, greatness does not come without sacrifice. It's as simple as that. So how far are you going to go ahead? And if your answers are positive for all of that, then move forward and move forward. And once you move forward, just keep walking. Johnny Walker, the alcohol brand, has a great tagline. It says, the crowd always makes way for the man, or in this case, for the person who knows where they are going. So if you know where you are going, and if you have your ambition going in the field, the world will make a path for you to walk across. That's important.
That's a great segue to this next question, which is, what according to you is success? How should one measure success, be it personal or professional?
Success is what makes you happy in the end. I mean, it sounds like a very great nirvana statement, but I'm not an Osho or a Sadhguru. All right. Success is what makes you get up every single morning and love what you are doing. Success is when you don't have to say, oh my God, I have to go to work again. Success is when you are sleeping and in your dreams, you think what you're going to do the next day. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Success is when you can create impact, actionable impact on the lives of people around you. Success is when you can sit down in your drawing room, put your feet up on the sofa in front of you, or the table in front of you, be with your loved ones, and smile at the end of the day and say, yes, today I have done something special. And if you can do that every day for the year, well, that is success.
Well, that's a very I think, what do the French call it? The joy of life, joy de la vie.
Joie de vivre. Absolutely.
I see where you're getting most of your inspiration from. I think all of this global travel has made you this global citizen. So it's fantastic to hear. So now a tricky question for you, and sort of we're at the last. So can you describe the MBA in as least number of words that you can?
Well, I'm a lot of things, my friend, but I'm not a man of few words, as you probably figured that out. So this is going to be
and that's why this was the toughest and kept for the last.
I think I'll put it from what an Athena MBA I would describe, what it is. It's about, and when I tell them this, I say, be the best that you can be. End of the story. If you can do that, you're an ideal MBA. It's not about what you think you can do. It's about what you can do in the end. That's good.
Interesting. So Aditya, tell me, is there a question you wish I had asked you?
Well, I do wish you'd ask me, what do I look in the ideal Athena candidate?
The candidate, yes. There we are. And so, let me ask you that question. So, while you are getting so many candidates who are applying to Athena School, what according to you is your ideal candidate? And going forward in the future, what kind of candidates would you prefer who would apply to the Athena School?
Well, I think I've used this term a lot. I think the first thing that I look at is a non-conformist. It's very important for us. Someone who's done something different, be it in co-curriculars, be it in social work, be it in a bit of the career, but someone who's different, someone who doesn't follow the normal path. That's number one. The second part is someone who has a lot of passion in whatever they do. That's important, because if you don't have that passion and that hunger for success, you burn out in the end. That's important for us. Third is, of course, that sheer positivity of attitude. And I say this with so many, I see so many guys who are brilliant mathematicians, physicians, blah, blah. But when you talk to them, there's absolutely no energy, all right? We want the positive attitude. Along with that, of course, we want to see decent academics. I want to be very honest with you. I really don't care if you have a 95% in your class 12. That's wonderful for a certain skill set of students. For us, it's not. For us, it's more about academics have to be decent, but what else have you done and what else do you want to do? If you ask me in one final phrase, I care less about who you are today, but who you aspire to be tomorrow. That's what we evaluate students at Athena.
And that brings us to a wrap. It was a fabulous interview.
It was a pleasure. And thank you so much. This was a conversation. It wasn't an interview, and that's what I always wanted to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Aditya. My pleasure. See you
Cheers.
soon. Bye-bye.